we're going to be doing our top 5, each of our top 5 high school mixtapes of all time.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Strictly Bball Podcast. I'm Nolan alongside my co-host, Joe. Joe, how you feeling today?
Feeling amazing. We have a very special episode today. We do a lot of stories on this podcast, but we got a little bit something different today. We're going to be doing our top 5, each of our top 5 high school mixtapes of all time.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get in some big names here. I'm not exactly sure who you have in your top 5, but I think we're going to go back and forth. But I'm excited to see who you have. There's a ton of options for this when I was looking at this.
So many options.
I saw some, I think I saw 10 or 15 I was thinking about putting on this top 5. So I think there's definitely going to be some good names left off this list, but I say we jump right into it. Who do you have at number 5?
At number 5, I'm curious to see if you have him on your list. I'm going to go with Andrew Wiggins, Maple Jordan, the startup of Maple Jordan. If you watch his mixtape, you're going to see the occasional block, the occasional dribble move or whatever it may be, but it's just a dunk highlight. Just insane dunks, crazy athleticism. He was the number 1 ranked player in the country, ended up going to Kansas, and obviously now he's playing for the Golden State Warriors. But high school mixtape, legendary high school mixtape, number 5 for me.
I will say he's not my number 5, but he is on my list. So
okay.
He's gonna be 4 through 1, somewhere in that range for me.
Awesome.
But I'll save my comments on Wiggins for when I announce him on my list. But number 5, Akil Carr.
Ooh,
that's my number 5.
Okay.
Do you have him on your list?
No,
start with that.
I don't. I do not have him on my list, but I do have some honorable mentions.
So he
was
there.
He was on my honorable mention. I have 3 honorable mentions.
I guess that's fair. He is only number 5 on my list, and there were some other guys below him that I think could have jumped up there. But in terms of short guys, in terms of guys under 6 foot, Akil Carr is number 1, so I had to get him on the list. Mm-hmm. Myself being under 6 foot, I had to get him on the list.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Being under 6 foot kind of helps lead into my number 4. I believe he was 5 foot. I believe he was 5'11". If not, he's right around 6 feet tall. I got Marcus Levette.
Oh,
at number 4, the Kyrie Irving of high school. Crazy handles. Literally, his mixtape, there wasn't a single dunk in it. It was just a bunch of crossovers, crazy dribble moves, handles. And a little bit about him. He actually went to St. John's University. Ended up averaging 16 points as a freshman, so he's actually very solid there.
Is he still there? I'm not sure.
Sadly, he's not still there. I mean, there's good. I'll get into the good part, but sadly, he's not there anymore because he suffered an MCL injury, so that put him out for a while. But the good thing with that is he actually ended up going pro. The first year he went pro, he didn't necessarily play the best, but this past year in Portuguese, he actually averaged 21 points per game. So he's balling out overseas, balling out playing professionally. So it's kind of a good and bad. He made good of a bad situation with a terrible injury, but
that's good to hear.
Yep. At number 4, Marcus Levette for me.
I like that because he brings a little bit of diversity to the list in terms of most of these guys are dunkers. Most of these guys are going to posterize people in their mixtapes.
I'm going to mention again, he didn't have a single dunk in his highlight or in his mixtape.
Still got your top 5.
Yeah, he's still in the top 5.
Best handles mixtape, maybe. You could put Kyrie in there.
Is he's not in your top 5?
He's not in my top 5.
He's not in your top 5.
He was one of those 10 to 15 guys I really thought about.
Okay.
Number 4 for me is Andrew Wiggins.
Okay.
This is where he's going to show up on my list.
Okay.
Wiggins, what stands out to me about this mixtape, obviously the dunks.
Yeah.
My favorite is just the hop step dunk. You probably know what I'm talking about.
I do know what
this
you're
one.
talking about.
He drives into the lane, hop step dunk, off 2 feet. It's just so unique. His bounce off 2 feet is unmatched.
I think there was a highlight because I actually watched it. I watched all of their mixtapes before coming to film this podcast, but I believe there was one where he was going for his own rebound. I think it was a layup or something. Just literally just jumps up and dunks it, which just highlights his insane athleticism. Just crazy mixtape. I'm glad that he's on your list at number 4.
He's the reason why this mixtape is part of the reason why Timberwolves fans thought we robbed the Cavaliers when we got him in a trade for Kevin Love. And people call him Maple Jordan, like you said.
That's how it started.
The athleticism. He's one of those guys where if he would have developed a really good, nice jump shot, and his athletic tools would have translated in a good way. He could have been one of the best players in the league. Bleacher Report put him number 1 in 2015. Bleacher Report put him number 1 on their projected top 25 players for 2020. Obviously, Wiggins is not a number 1 player in the league.
No.
He's probably not top 50.
He's a solid role player on the Warriors,
Solid 4th piece on a good team, I'd say.
Yep, I would agree with that.
I mean, yeah, he didn't pan out, but mixtape-wise, Wiggins is up there for me.
Okay, moving on to number 3 for me. I'm going to go with 7th Woods. I'm going with 7th Woods, one of the most popular mixtapes ever. He was 14 years old at the time. You watch a mixtape, it looks like you're watching like a senior, like a 17, 18-year-old. Absolutely insane mixtape. Crazy athleticism, but after that, there wasn't really too much of 7th Woods. Not a lot of crazy things have happened to him since that, but nonetheless,
we can get into that. We can
get into that a little bit later. But nonetheless, 7th Woods is number 3 on my top 5.
I'll say right off the bat, 3 for me is 7th Woods.
Okay,
we agree on one spot. I didn't think that would happen, but we agree on 7th Woods. Like you said, it was like watching a senior in high school, and not even that. It was like watching the number 1 senior. Like it was like watching Wiggins. It was like, I mean, he obviously looked young and he was playing against young kids, but a lot of 14-year-olds can dunk, but no 14-year-olds are. I mean, there was one dunk in that mixtape in particular that is just ridiculous. Like poster and transition is the one I'm thinking of. Also, not to mention, I didn't really think about this when I was making this list, but he has the best, most goated background track on his hoop mixtape.
Here's the thing. With my number 1, I think it's up for debate. It's going to be such an unpopular opinion, but that I would agree with the track.
Song?
Yeah,
okay.
The background track that they put over the highlights, 7th Woods is definitely up there. Like it just makes it just so much more hype.
And if you put that sound on anything else, it's like, well, that's 7th Woods is like,
you hear that sound and it's just so recognizable. Yep. You're like, okay, that's 7th Woods.
And they never use it again. I don't think Hoop Mixtape ever used that again in a video.
Yep, I don't think so. At least that I have seen, I don't think they have.
It wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't feel right.
It definitely wouldn't feel right.
All right, who's your number 2?
My number 2, I gotta go with John Wall. I'm going to.
No, I'm. Keep going.
Okay, John Wall. This was like kind of the start of like mixtapes. Like the start, like YouTube was kind of slowly on the rise. John Wall, obviously, he's a little bit older than all these players that we're mentioning. So it's like an earlier mixtape. Nonetheless, absolutely crazy. There's a bunch of highlights within it. Blocks, dunks, crazy dribble moves. I remember one of them, it was like a snatchback. I think it was like a sham god.
Yep.
Super filthy. It was just a great mixtape. And it's just, I think if you could argue that this should be number 1 on my list, but it's at number 2. I'm going with John Wall.
Okay. A couple of thoughts on that. One, I feel like your number 1 is going to be a surprise.
It's a big surprise.
And it is a big
surprise.
And you haven't said my number 1. And I don't think you will say my number 1. But I
guess we'll see.
Okay.
If I say big surprise,
it's not my guy. It's not my guy. It's a surprise.
Yeah,
but
it's a big surprise.
My number 2 is John Wall as well. So we agree on actually 2 and 3. That's surprising. But
John Wall, same spot.
John Wall, like you said, probably of like the OGs.
It kind of set the tone of what a legendary mixtape is. That's what it was for me.
This is a good time to give a shout out to 2 other OGs of mixtapes. Brandon Jennings,
yeah.
And Derrick Rose actually had a good one. His is like the oldest, like, when did John Wall get drafted? 2010, I think?
Something like
2009.
I think I was looking, John Wall's was like 12 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so probably 2009.
We were like 9, 10 years old. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I didn't remember this mixtape like when it came out, obviously, but watching it back, it's incredible. But yeah, shout out to Brandon Jennings and Derrick Rose. They come to mind as like some of the OGs, like pre-2012 or 2010 even, with the mixtapes. But yeah, John Wall, my number 2. I guess this is, I feel like this, from what you're saying, is just, who's your number 1?
All right. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep it together because people are probably going to disagree with me completely, but I am so serious when I say, I would probably say, rephrasing top 5, I'd probably say my favorite 5. Okay. These are my favorite 5 mixtapes. That's ones fair. That have, I feel like that makes, it's because like if you said this isn't top 5 mixtape, it's kind of, a blast. It's just an outrageous kind of take. But
Yeah, I
my
don't know.
favorite mixtape of all time, and it's specific, the Baller Visions Lonzo Ball mixtape.
Senior year mixtape.
Senior
Wow.
year mixtape. Production level off the charts.
Yeah. That actually brings something
the
to it.
mixtape has it all. It's literally like a movie. They go through all the
did not
highlights.
kn- I did not
They
know
end
that.
they end the mixtape with him like drinking like it's like fake champagne or whatever. They cap off the state title, 35-0, undefeated season. The track that they use is absolutely perfect.
It brings in a lot of those other
Great
variables.
editing. It's just the
That's a
perfect.
good one.
It's just the perfect mixtape. Like if you compare the production quality, it blows my mind. It's just so good. I love it. So right now, if you have never seen it, and most of you are probably thinking I'm crazy, but right now, your checklist of what to do today after you watch this podcast, search Lonzo Ball Baller Visions mixtape. That's what you got to do. Watch it. You will not be disappointed.
I think a lot of people have seen it, but if
It
you
has a
haven't,
lot of views.
obviously-
I think it has like 4 million views.
which
but
is
I rank
kind
it-
of low for these guys. But
Yeah, it is kind of low, which, yeah. 4
actually, no,
million
4
views.
million. I think that's probably ballpark
About
of these
half.
other guys.
It's
You
about
think?
half. Yeah, it is. I checked.
What Seventh Woods is over 10 mil, I think.
It's right around there. John Wall's at like 10 million. Marcus Levette is like 7-8, if I'm not mistaken. Wiggins is like 7-8 too. Lonzo Ball is like 4.
But I respect the pick because I feel like that
Remember,
was
my
the prime,
personal
yeah.
favorite.
That was
If
like the prime of like when we were super into
Yes,
YouTube.
we were
and
super
stuff.
into YouTube. There was so much hype around the Ball brothers. It was Lonzo Ball's senior season. He led them to an undefeated season. They won the state title. The mixtape is literally like a crazy production. It's like a movie. It's literally like a movie.
I like that.
Of his senior season.
I will say he's not my number one, but I like that pick. He's not in my top 5, but I like that pick. Also, when I first started like writing down guys, like I looked at one list. I think somebody a while back listed, a few years ago listed like their top 30, and I don't think Lonzo was on it. So that isn't
Lonzo. You're probably not gonna find Lonzo on any list, but nonetheless, go just look it up. If you haven't watched it, watch it, and you will not be disappointed. I'm telling you.
All right.
And you've seen it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's really good.
It's amazing.
I think you should watch it again. I think you
will.
should watch it again.
I actually didn't watch that coming into this episode or this podcast.
I wouldn't expect you to, honestly. Yeah, that's my personal favorite.
And
Joe,
that's the surprise of the podcast. Yeah.
Well, first off, before we get into your number one, is this the one you think that's the best, or is this your personal favorite mixtape?
Both.
It's both?
Yep.
Okay.
My number one high school mixtape of all time is Zion Williamson.
It's a great pick. That is a
Zion
great pick.
Williamson is the best high school dunker of all time.
Yes.
This was just the best collection of high school dunks you could possibly assemble because he just did it every game. Partly because he was facing literally like 5'5" kids.
Yeah.
Like Bryson Bishop. Shout out to Bryson Bishop.
Shout out Bryson Bishop. Stay tuned.
Yeah, but yeah, this is number one for me for a lot of reasons. Number one, like I said, the dunks are incredible. Every single kind of dunk you can imagine. Posters, lobs. The lobs on this one are insane. Playing on Lonzo's high school team, especially when his teammates weren't even that good, I feel like his teammates were just average high school players.
Yeah.
He wasn't at some like prep school. They were throwing lobs to Zion. That had to have been a blast, but
For sure. Now, I love the dunks. These are like my favorite ones of Zion in high school, where it's just like a shot of like one of his teammates just like putting up a shot, and then it shows them like all looking up for the ball out of nowhere. Just
Yeah.
a truck just comes behind you, just posters the hell out of you.
yeah.
Like literally, it's just oh my gosh, and he did that every single night. It's
Yeah.
unreal.
Also, the other reason is just because of the time in junior year when Leighton, one of our friends, Leighton.
Did we mention this in the first podcast?
I think we might have mentioned this in episode 1, but
For the viewers that haven't seen, Joe.
actually, I don't know. We didn't.
We didn't.
No, we talked about this a different time, I think. But
Okay.
yeah, so one of my friends did a presentation on it was like after an AP test, I think it was, and it
was not after an AP test. This
Yeah, it was.
No, this was.
It was US
a-
history.
Yeah, it was U.S. history, but it was a presentation on who's the most influential
No,
person
it
in
was
U.S. history.
after like the AP test. It was
Oh,
for the
wait.
AP US history class.
Yes.
It was after the test happened, so the teacher was like, all right, whatever, we can do something fun. They said you had to pick the most influential person in US history. That was like the assignment, and you had to make a presentation on it. One of my friends chose Zion Williamson, junior in high school, Zion Williamson. So there was like a bracket, and he went up against like Michael Jordan, and then he went up against like Albert Einstein, and then like George Washington, Abe Lincoln or whatever, and he won the whole thing. Because
he won the whole thing?
Yeah, he got
I
to
didn't
the
know
final
that.
game. And like it's just the class like got behind it.
Yeah.
But the presentation was basically just like Zion's high school mixtape. So I took a video of it and I tweeted it out. And then the next class, me and Leighton had the same class, or had another class together. I get a notification on my phone, and you weren't in this class. So I get the notification on my phone, and it says Zion Williamson like tweeted at you or quoted your tweet and said much love. And I showed him, he was sitting next to me. We just booked it out of the classroom. It was the most exciting thing in a class. Like, and now looking back on that, like Zion was famous, but like he was not the number one
he was
pick.
He was super hyped around though.
He was super hyped, but like now he's like gonna be an NBA star, and like that's pretty cool looking back on it. But that's another bias I have towards Zion and that mixtape in particular. But I do think it is the best high school mixtape of all time and my favorite. So that's my number one.
Awesome. I like that pick.
You mentioned some honorable mentions. Who do you got honorable mentions wise?
My honorable mentions, so Zion, I had to mention Zion, especially, being a friend of yours, kind of being around that, with what happened with Zion tweeting at you guys. And then obviously the mixtape itself was incredible. Like it's the craziest, like some of the craziest dunks you'll ever seen are in that mixtape. Akil Carr, and then because he was at your number 5, right? Akil Carr, and then I actually am gonna go with Trey Jefferson, which I will talk about in a little bit. But those are my honorable mentions.
I'll name one honorable mention. I didn't go into I didn't list a bunch of honorable mentions, okay. But Gabe York is an underrated one. He didn't go on to do much. I think he was a good player at Arizona for some years. I don't know where he's at now. Yeah, he went to Arizona. I don't know where he's at now. It could be maybe there's a story behind that, but maybe he's overseas, I'm not sure. But Gabe York had some incredible dunks in his mixtape.
Oh yeah, he did.
So that's my honorable mention.
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say about Trey Jefferson? Where is he now?
I was gonna get into that a little bit, but actually that kind of takes us away from like the mixtape part of this discussion. I wanted to ask you a question. Do you think like the mixtapes, like kind of, I would say around like 5-ish years ago, like there was a lot of hype around high school mixtapes. Would you say like how do you think that's changed? Like, do you think it's changed? Like, what do you think the scope of it is now?
I would say mixtapes are, I think sometimes mixtapes like over time they kind of gain a little bit. Like obviously people look back on John Wall's mixtape. People look back on Zion's. But in the moment, I don't think mixtapes are as hyped as they used to be. Like I think about a guy like Mikey Williams. I don't think he's gonna like have a mixtape that brings that level of excitement.
Yeah.
I don't know if Hoop Mixtape does as many anymore because I feel like Hoop Mixtape was the best.
I thought they were the best. Them or Ball is
Ball
Life.
is Life is good, but I don't know. I think a lot of the hype now in high school is like big matchups, like. Whether that be, I think in October, the beginning of October, Mikey plays Sierra Canyon and Brownie. That's going to be a big game.
Yep.
I think the hype is around big matchups now because of guys like teaming up, joining like super teams and prep schools and stuff. Like over time, mostly post like matchups, and they kind of focus on those big games rather than one player their whole season. Because you got to follow a guy for the whole year in order to make a mixtape.
Right. For sure. I want to say kind of, I feel like something that kind of plays into it as well is sort of how much social media has like actually grown. Like, I don't know. I feel like because of that, like if a mixtape were to come out, it wouldn't have that sort of level of hype. But, 5 years ago, YouTube was like at the absolute top. Like that was just your main source of entertainment through social media. But now, there's like Twitter's super popular, Instagram's super popular, TikTok is at like the top right now.
I got another reason. You see the highlights as they come in.
You do.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, exactly.
If
we're not like literally right as they're coming in within like 10 minutes.
If somebody's recording, like when we were in Indiana for the high school tournament, these guys are recording for like Slam, met a guy from Ball is Life, Overtime, and they're what was it? The Under Armour Association Finals was the tournament I was talking about. But whenever they were recording, like if Hansel Manuel threw down a dunk, these guys would literally like leave the area, get the best Wi-Fi they can, plug in their cameras, get it up and tweet or Instagram out the video as soon as it happens.
Yeah.
Like they will literally, because they want to be the first guy to get it out there. And I feel like if you're watching a John Wall mixtape, the entire way through is like the first time you're seeing every single one of these highlights.
Exactly. And that's because social media or like other platforms of social media weren't as prominent.
Yeah. And now everything's instant.
It's all instant.
I would say, to answer your question completely, I don't think mixtapes have the same hype. High school basketball in general still has the hype though.
Yeah, I agree completely. Do you think there will be a mixtape that reaches the same level of hype of close or even close to the level of hype as the guys that are in our top 5, even like top 10, like, you know, Gabe York, Trey Jefferson, like if you combine ours, that's like 7 or 8 right there.
I think there will be. I mean, you think Zion wasn't that long ago. Twitter was big, yeah. Instagram, like the reasons we just said. Zion was just a freak. And like if that happens again, that will be a top mixtape. But current guys in high school, but I don't know, I don't know. It's gotta be someone who has like a ton, just an athletic freak and like a popular guy. Like Mikey Williams has a popularity, but I don't think he's gonna put together the same type of mixtape, obviously, as Zion or any of those guys. But I don't know. I think it could happen, but nobody in high school right now, I don't think is gonna put together a better one.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think it's best that we save Trey Jefferson for another podcast. I'm super excited to get into that.
Like his story?
Yeah, his story and kind of like
where he's at now.
Like where he's at now, kind of what followed his crazy high school mixtape. But yeah, we'll save that for another episode.
I think we get into Seventh Woods and where he's at now too. But yeah, we'll get into that at a later time. But that's going to do it for today. That's another episode of the Strictly Bball Podcast. Make sure you're following us on all socials at Strictly Bball on TikTok and Instagram. And subscribe on YouTube, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever. And leave a comment or a review.
We'll catch you guys in the next episode.